Did you know that only 7% of salons turn a profit, 20% are breaking even, and the rest of them are going backwards? Well, that's according to an online research poll from Salon Opinion. And I wanted to talk with you today about how you make a salon profit. If you're down for that, stick around. Let's do it.
Salon owners are some of the most amazing people on planet Earth. The only problem is sometimes their hearts are so big and they give so much of themselves to their staff and guests that it creates unintended consequences. Our goal is to change the industry by elevating the way the rest of the world sees salons, spas, and barbershops and give it the credibility that it truly deserves. This is the Salon Owner Evo Revo Show. Today's podcast is brought to you by Salon Scale, allowing you to charge by what you know, not by what you feel. Welcome to today's Evo Revo Show. You're hanging out with Jason and with Doug. What's going on, Doug?
How's it going?
Dude, glad to be on with you today. Looking forward to today's subject, because if you are a salon owner and you're paying attention today, it's going to make you money. That's period dot. What we're going to help you do today is make you some money. If you're down for that, do me a favor and say money in the chat if you're on with us live. If you're watching later or listening later, thanks for being here. Either way, we're still going to make you money, whether you're listening live or listening later. It's totally fine. Let's talk about this, because Doug, salon profit is like, it's like a word that everybody says that most people mean something else. It's like I say potato, you say potato, but we're both talking about something completely different. Dude, yeah.
It's interesting whenever we start working with salons and start talking about profit. And at first, the owner comes in very confident. I got profit, and after a while, and even these are even really well ran, smart people that are doing
multi-million-dollar salons,
right? But they've never really worked through it, and part of it's an accountant's fault, or just really understanding what true profit is. And to be clear on that, to be fair,
right,
is a lot of business owners aren't real clear on what.
It's not just the salon industry that's confused on this one, right?
Right. Because, one of the things that accountants do, and I think they do it for fine reasons. They're trying to help, is they say, oh, well, don't pay yourself a very low salary. But when you do that, you're changing what the real profit is. You're altering what the real profit of the business. Right. Mm-hmm. So an accountant will tell you, don't because you'll save on payroll taxes. But this is, so you got to think, are you got a wealth mentality, or do you have a poverty mentality? Do I need to manipulate things as much as possible to pay the least amount that I possibly could pay in taxes? Well, If you never want to sell your business and you want it to die with you, that's a perfectly good strategy. But now, if you ever want to have a business that you can actually sell, because when someone buys your business
or buys into your business,
they're buying future profits. And so if you're not clear about, you can't change everything all of a sudden. Oh yeah, I'm making $200,000 off my salon. But I don't pay myself for what I do behind the chair. I don't pay myself a management fee. I don't do this stuff. And so then when somebody comes in, you got to split that and say, well, that's not real profit. So now we start trying to get down to it. So
let's take a second, because I think let's break down where income comes from inside a salon. Yep. And there's three primary, and then there's a fourth bonus we'll talk about in just a second. But there's three primary sources of income inside your salon, and you got to understand the difference between these three. And please, somebody type this in as we're going. So number one, you've got your behind the chair income. Okay, your behind the chair income is the money that you work behind the chair, and it could be behind the chair, it could be as a massage therapist, it could be whatever the role is that you play as an employee inside your business. You make money from being a service provider inside the salon. That is one type of income.
Right. Which, by the way, you need to pay yourself the same way you'd pay an employee. Not, I pay myself 80% commission that I don't run through payroll. I just take that as a draw. It's exactly like an employee. You pay yourself behind the chair exactly like you would pay an employee. Okay.
That's how we're defining that, because if not, you're getting into a weird conversation. So let's keep the conversation less weird. Pay yourself like a normal employee. That's income number one. Income number two is if you are acting as a management team or owner, you can have a salary as a manager or owner for the business. So if you work as a service provider, you pay yourself like a regular employee, then you're doing a job throughout the week. Could be a part-time job, could be a full-time job, could be whatever that is for you. And that salary that you take as the owner becomes another source of income. So you have your working as a service provider income, and you have an owner's income. Now, this is where it gets a little fuzzy again, Doug, because people say, well, what's a reasonable owner's salary, or what's a reasonable manager's salary? And I think the best way to define that is to say, what would it cost for you to replace yourself with another person? Like if you said, I want to hire a part-time manager to do my one-on-one meetings, how much would I have to pay that person?
Which is the whole idea behind it anyway. When you have the right mentality about it, is that you do want to replace yourself in doing those things. So you need to create a fair market value for what that work is worth, so that when you replace yourself, it doesn't screw up the budget. So you like say, what in this market would I have to pay someone to do what I do? And then hopefully you get to the point that you start paying people to do those things so you can do higher level things.
Yeah. So we have the two incomes. We have your service provider income or behind the chair income, and then we have your owner or manager salary. And I'm saying owner or manager salary because I'm assuming as the owner, you're doing some of those jobs, right? Like if you were the janitor, you need to pay yourself as a janitor salary or pay yourself to do those jobs. Any of the jobs that you do, you should pay yourself for the job that you do. The third income is what we're talking about today, which is called profit. Okay, which is called profit. And profit is a reward that you get for taking the risk of business ownership. And Doug, this is I don't have to work every day to still get a profit. Like I could be a silent partner in the business, right? I could own a business, be a silent partner, not go to work every single day. And the profit in typical accounting terms, and we'll talk about profit first, but like in typical accounting terms, it's like, well, you have all your income, you have all your expenses, and then whatever is left over technically is your profit. It's how much the business itself makes outside of the effort of the team that's working it. Would that be a fair assessment, or do you want to modify that at all? And we'll talk about the profit first, but in general.
Profit is a reward for starting your business.
Right.
It's a reward for taking the risk and doing all the heavy lifting at the beginning to get your business going, or putting down a big chunk of money to buy a business. It's your reward for that. Profit is not something you work for. And that's where people get confused. Like, oh, I pay myself this, but I don't pay myself behind the chair. I don't pay the manager. So, and they looked at it and said, that's how much I can't tell you. It's like, we make $200,000 in profit a year. And it's like, okay, what's your behind the chair? Well, I don't pay myself that. It just goes into the pool. Okay, well, what are you paying yourself as a man? I don't pay myself. Then you're not making $200,000 in profit.
Right.
And people, but my accountant says it's like, that's
right. And this is where it gets a little shady, right? Is that what ends up happening is when somebody says, how much profit do you make? They assume that's just what they get paid from the business. Now, like Doug and I just said, there's three incomes you get paid for: your service provider income, your manager and owner income, and your profit. Those three things should be separate. And again, profit comes after all of your income, after all your expenses. That's your profit in a traditional profit model that you would talk to about your accountant. And like Doug said, things can get sideways because your accountant can say, hey, I've got a great way for you to save on tax. Pay yourself less of a salary and take it all through a distribution. Sometimes they would advise you to do things like that. And the good of that is it reduces your taxable liability and it allows you to pay less tax for sure. So why not do that? Well, because if you ever, to Doug's point, if you ever want to sell your company, sell your business, or get somebody to buy into it, they can't buy into something that has an inflated number. And you don't want to represent it that way. You got to properly set this up. So let's talk about this. I mentioned there was a fourth income. I want to talk about fourth income that exists from the business because this is kind of a side one I want to make sure you guys at least understand, because some people also will count this as part of their business income. Is that if you own the building that you're in, if you own the building or you own the real estate that your salon takes up, there's more income that can come from the investment of the building. Because some people will do this. They'll say, well, I own my building outright, and so I take all the money and I just pay it straight to myself, right? That could be another way to kind of wash funny money through the business and not really, and I say funny money, not meaning it's fake money, but I'm just saying like you won't be clear about those types of income. So if you own the business the building outright, or you run the business out of someplace that you already own, or you don't have to pay. Siri's chatting back to me, but you own the business out of somewhere that like you don't have to pay rent because it's in another building that you own or something like that, and you're like, oh well, that rent money it goes into profit. Well, that's not right. Make sure you're taking profit off your rent and the income there. You're taking profit off what you do here. You're taking the owner and manager salary, and you're paying yourself a reasonable wage, just like you would any other employee for the work you do behind the chair. Now, here's the deal. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about What are some average profits? How do you pay yourself properly? How you can set things up right, and how you can actually pay yourself a profit first inside your business to make sure you're not dealing with scraps and leftovers. Because if you want to be better than the 7% of salons that make a profit, we're going to tell you how to do it when we come back from this commercial break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, HPSA listeners, let me ask you this. Are you tired of not knowing what your hair color is costing you on every appointment and watching it chew up your profit? Well, with Salon Scale, we take the guesswork out for you. Using a mobile app paired with a Bluetooth scale, Salon Scale will tell you exactly what your color is costing you on every bowl mix down to the gram. As you mix, Salon Scale will also digitally store your formulas and track how much product is being used in real time, so you can manage your inventory, cover your expenses, and generate more profit in your salon. Use promo code HPSA10 to get 10% off an annual subscription. Salon Scale, the new standard for mixing color.
Welcome back. We're chatting about your salon and your salon profit. In fact, talking of one of our sponsors for the show, Salon Scale, that helped a lot of our salon owners increase their profits, in some cases by $75,000 this last year, by understanding this difference. What is profit versus what is your take-home income? And I think a lot of businesses think when they just say, what's profit, that's the money I take home. That's not accurate. The money you take home needs to be divided out into several chunks. We were just mentioning it. It needs to be divided out in your service provider income, if you are a service provider. It needs to be divided into your manager or owner salary. And then lastly is your profit. And then if there's any other money that you may have, it may come from your real estate, that needs to be separate and put into separate categories. So those are the four categories. If that's helpful, do me a favor and say helpful. Go ahead, Doug.
On the real estate thing, I mean, you need to treat it like a real business.
Sure.
Two separate entities. One entity should own the real estate, the other one should own the business, and you should be paying yourself fair market rent. So that there, I mean, it's what size game you want to play. I mean, if you really are interested in, growing your wealth and becoming wealthy and hopefully wealthy beyond what you ever thought you could be, then you've got to get in that mindset. I've got to run these things like a real business and not how I can, because, I only pay $1,000 where I should be paying $4,000 in rent, but only pay $1,000 in rent. And I get this deduction from this, that, and the other. It's like, that's a small game. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just playing a small game. You want to play the big game and make the big money, then you've got to start treating things like a real business. Understand what profit is in your real estate. Understand what profit is in your salon. So then a friend of ours said, every decision that you make in your business should be based on, is this going to make my company more valuable when I sell it? And I know it's uncomfortable to some people because that's my baby. I created it from nothing.
I would never sell it.
Right. Eventually, hopefully you created a great, wonderful thing that's going to mature and be worth a lot of money that you can sell it and you feel good about it and it can go on for a long time without you. And that's the thing. If you really want to create it should be able to go on without you. Otherwise, you really don't have a business. You have something that is, you either own your own job or whatever. I mean, if you were to be pulled out of it and it collapses because you're gone, then you really have. Now, in the beginning, you're going to have to be there. I mean, you're going to be a part of it. Why profit is the reward for that, and then what you can sell it for, because what you're selling is future profits. One of the things on that topic that people make a mistake on all the time, Jason, is they bring on shareholders before they really have identified what their real profit is and are making a consistent profit. Yeah, because then people are buying in and they're confused. The owner doesn't really understand what the profit is. It's like, well, it's a $3 million a year business. It's worth $1 million. It's like, where do you come up with that? Well, because I feel like it should be. Well, that's great.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is the thing, right? Is that a lot of people say this, look, I've got a $1 million salon and I take home $100,000. Right. Mm-hmm. I take home. That's the conversation. I take home $100,000. I have $1 million business. Well, but this is the problem, right? Is that you go, well, I make a 10% profit. I hear that all the time. I hear those kind of comments. Okay. So $1 million business, I take home 100 grand, 10% profit, or I take home 200 grand of my $1 million business. So therefore I have a 20% profit. That's not accurate, because if you are working, and this is why, if you're working behind the chair, then you have to say, I take this much money from my, my service provider income, and then I have this much profit. Now, here's what I see all the time. And the stat I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 7% of salons break even, 7% of salons make a profit, 20% break even, and the rest are going backwards. Let me tell you about a backwards conversation on $1 million salon. Okay. So I was talking to a salon one time, had $1 million salon, and here was the deal. They were taking home $100,000. They had $1 million salon. But if you took out their service provider income as the salon owner, they would have had to pay themselves between $150,000 to $175,000 a year. So think about this for a second, okay? If they were a service provider working in somebody else's salon, they would make between $150,000 to $175,000 a year. They're not paying themselves that. They're only taking a salary of $100,000 a year. So what does that mean? That extra 50 to 75 grand that's left over, right? The difference between what they would have been making behind the chair, that is just getting absorbed into the salon. It's getting completely just wiped out. That actually means they're losing, because see, this is important. They're losing that 50 to 75 grand a year because they didn't pay it out properly. That means they bought new shampoo bowls. It means that they're paying for cool new couches for their waiting room. It means they fancied up their salon or done something to spend money in a way that didn't move the profit needle for them. And they're actually going backwards. That's why we say 7% make a profit, 20% are breaking even, which just means they're paying themselves, like it's paying them to work. So let me give you the exact example with a break even, okay? So let's say $1 million salon, the owner takes home 150 grand, and that's, they take 150 grand, but they would make 150 grand behind the chair. So they pay their behind the chair income, but guess what's now missing? Their manager's salary is now missing because they're running one-on-one meetings and they're doing other things. They're not paying themselves a manager's salary. Guess what? Still going backwards. So they could break even. Let's say they pay themselves 150 grand for their work behind the chair or a service provider. They pay themselves 25 grand as a owner's salary. And then they pay themselves out that. Well, guess what? No profit, still zero profit, right? Mm-hmm. So Doug, do you want to talk for a second about what we learned from Mike Michalowicz? Because we got a few minutes on this. I think it'd be worth having a conversation, just a light version of it.
Yeah, I think the profit first that he does, instead of just waiting to see what falls out the bottom, which is just terrible. Because the reason you got in is to make money. So let's protect the money right off the bat.
Make money from the profit.
Right. So
otherwise, work for somebody else.
Here's our gross revenue, and this is what I want my profit to be. And in the beginning, you may have to start off at 2 or 3% profit, and that's fine. Right. But at least you start pulling it out and putting it in a separate account right off the top before you do anything else. Right. And then the company you force the company to live off what's left. But if you don't protect that profit, that's where people get bitter and, so I've been doing all this stuff and they're not clear. They don't know what the profit is. They're not sure why they even got into it. So getting clear right up front and understanding, start pulling that over, because then you're going to be able to have people buy into your business sooner if you start protecting profit right off the bat, because you'll be able to show them the real numbers. You'll understand them. They'll understand them. When you do your pricing, when you do your, it's like the way when we help people calculate what their level system should be. We protect profit right off the bat. We say if you're going to make this much profit, it goes into the equation. We slide that over,
right,
and then
we calculate everything else.
Right. And it says the same thing with your pricing. It's like everything's got to be focused. Profit's not a bad word. It's your paycheck it's your reward for going into business, because you're taking a risk. You could lose everything. You never know. There could be a worldwide pandemic. Who knows? I know that sounds crazy, but never happened. So make sure that you're protected. So then when you're doing your pricing, you do your pricing based on will this pricing allow me to pay what I need to pay to keep the people I need to keep and have the building that I need to have and still produce a profit? If the answer is no, then it's the wrong price. People ask, well, how do I know what my pricing is? Well, you need to figure out if I'm protecting profit and I need to pay this, this, and this, I can figure out how many services do I need to do? How much retail do I need to sell? And I know where I need to be. And then once you get clear about that too, then you have the ability to start moving and say, okay, now I'm going to start I started 3%. Now maybe I start doing 4%. And I live off the other 96% of what's coming in. And I keep moving that over and I get used to because if you're not aware of it, you can't manage it. If it's just something that's left over at the end of the day, and say, well, I need to talk to my accountant and find out if I made any money this month. It's just not the way to do it. and they do it in a lot of different industries. It's not just the hair industry. This
Right,
is the
right.
one we work in and we're part of, and that we talk to intimately. So we know that there's a lot of. But it's amazing what happens when people start getting clear, and it takes a little while because they've got so much false information that we have to, get out.
Undo,
Uh,
unwind.
but once they do, there's some very smart, creative people in this industry that start making really good money once
I love
they
it.
understand it. No one ever taken the time, or they didn't take the time to really understand it. They're, more concerned about, how's my culture, how's my salon look, how does this, that, and the other.
Right.
I mean, two,
Does
$3
everybody
million
get along?
salons
Does
that are
it look
making
good? Totally.
2% profit. It's like, okay, you should have got focused on because 2% profit on $3 million salon, $60,000 a year is what you're bringing
Whoop-de-doo.
home profit, right? Where if you
Right.
had $1 million salon at 20%, then you bring home $200,000 a year. I can tell you, it's a lot easier to manage $1 million salon than it is a $3 million salon, and you're making almost 3 times more money doing the $1 million.
Right.
Is that
And I see
get
it.
clear.
I see it all the time.
Both are important. I mean, your gross numbers are important and your profits important, but you got to make sure you
Yeah.
understand both of them. And like I say, if you want to play the big game and you want what you look at other people, you look at things, say, I'd like to have that, I'd like to take that trip, I'd like to live in that house. You can. You just got to do it the right way when you're going across, and then open the door for other people to come in and benefit off of what you've built. It works for everybody. You just got to get clear about what you're actually doing and managing the things that are part of it.
Well said. And this is it, right? If you just say, most salons, when they start to bring on partners, they don't know how to split up the money because there's very little money to split up. So they just go, well, I'll give you part. And I've seen this. I've seen salon owners that have worked together as partners for 20 years. And one partner is the finance partner and the other partner is the creative artist partner. Right. And then the creative artist always goes, well, I don't really know, but I haven't made any money off the salon. But one of these days I'm going to get a paycheck off the salon. It's going to come. And they bust their butt behind the chair. They do all this stuff. And they're like, all I know is we made $2.5 million. Everybody always knows the top number, but the bottom number is confusing. They go, all I know is my partner said we didn't make a profit and nobody got an extra paycheck.
That's what always kills me too, is when they say, yeah, I'm going to bring on shareholders and I'm defining what they're going to have to do now that they're shareholders. I was like, okay, wait.
Yeah, because they bring on extra employee. That's somebody who will work for free like me.
Right. It's like, think about what you just said. I'm going to have somebody pay me to do a job that I'm not going to pay them for.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a promise for future.
People say that all the time. It's like, I'm going to bring on shareholders and they can take over inventory and they can take over this and they can how are you compensating them for that? Well, that's just part of their owner job. You know what I had to do to start this business? I don't care. Is it someone buying into it? They're buying into to share in the profit. You need to get focused. Yeah. If you want to be rewarded for all that hard work, and I know it's hard work. I've done it. I understand it. But what I'm saying is you got to get clear. Your reward is that you generate a profit. So you need to get clear on that. If you're not clear on that, reach out to us, reach out to somebody that can help you get clear on what that is, because I've seen it time and time again. Once people get clear, it starts to change in a very nice way.
That's right. So guys, if you want help with your profit, if you're like, okay, look, I'm clear now after having this conversation, profit needs to be my focus and I'm not paying myself properly and I need to get help with it. And you just want to raise your hand and say like, I need to fix this. Do me a favor, send me a DM and just say, I need help with my profit. And legit, we will take care of you. We'll figure it out. And we've had salons that have been $3 million salons with zero profit. We've had salons that have been $500,000 salons with massive amounts of profit. And either way, we will help you protect your profit, help you make the money you deserve off your salon, get paid the right way. Because it's kind of like playing a game and not realizing how people are keeping score. You ever played a game like that where you're like, how am I being scored here? I'm not really sure. Well, the way you're being scored as a business owner is how much profit you take from the business, not how much you take home. Because look, if at the end of the day, all you want to do is get paid to do your behind the chair work or your service provider work and be a manager, then go get 2 jobs. Go be a service provider somewhere and then go get a second job as a manager at a Starbucks, and ta-da, you probably are going to work less hours than you would as a business owner. So if you're going to work extra hours as a business owner and put in that time, be rewarded by the profit in the future in order to be a successful salon owner. If you want help right here in the podcast. Do me a favor and say profit in the video if you're watching with us live, or send me a DM and say, I want help with my profit. And we'll get you hooked up. We'll make you heck of a lot more money and help you become a real business owner. Thanks for sticking around for today's show. As you can tell, Doug and I are a little fired up about this subject because we like protecting not only our profit, but your profit and anybody else who will listen. So thanks for joining us on today's show. Thank you so much, Doug.
All right, guys. Good to see you.
Bye for now. See you guys. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Evo Revo podcast.
Today's podcast was brought to you by Salon Scale, allowing you to charge by what you know, not by what you feel.
Please subscribe, leave us a review, and you can always get more information, including show notes and the video episodes at evorevopodcast.com.